Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Job with Ellen and Sarah. We're back for another weekly stand-up. Happy Monday. Before we jump into our interview with Bailey, we're going to do our weekly stand-up. I've said that twice now. Hey, Sarah. How's it going?
Hi, Ellen. That's great. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We made it. I hope everyone had a fabulous weekend.
Yes. Cheers to Ellen and Tim for celebrating their anniversary. Happy 3 years.
Thank you. Wild.
Cap.
Everyone was like, oh, how's it been 3 years already? And I'm like, you're telling
Honestly.
me. I put 4 years on his card and I had to cross it out and put 3.
You're like, JK.
I know.
And you said 3 years is the year of leather.
Leather. I know. Which I was like, this could go one of two ways, but
I know, that's why.
Yeah, right. But we went really exciting and did suitcases this year.
Oh, practical. It's encouraging travel. I like it.
Mm-hmm. We got some travel coming up the rest of the year, and I was like, this fits. Yeah. This goes well with the theme and for the rest of the year. So that's where we landed.
Good suitcases are a win. That's for sure. It's like such an adult purchase that you're just like,
I know.
Yes. I feel
like I've reached a new level of adulthood with a nice, clean, matching luggage set. So that's my exciting news. Sarah, walk us through your weekly stand-up. What's up?
Ooh. Okay, I have 2 things. So timing, Bailey, yes, great episode. But she actually texted me this morning a picture of her and Grace, which is basically like my little sister. Grace has a photography business in Kansas City, Gracefully Made in KC. So they, I think we're like Instagram friends or met somehow via Instagram. And then they got together and got coffee this morning. And so that was really sweet that she, texted me a picture of it because I was like, oh my God, I love when we're able to make connections. And obviously Kansas City is so small that it's like naturally they're going to run into each other at some point, I'm sure. But I think it was really sweet. And, hopefully they both listen to this pod. Obviously, Bailey's going to listen to her own because who doesn't love to listen to themselves talk? La la. I'm out of practice. I had work this week. The other thing, so I have this story. So my mom's in town, right? And we've been spending all week together. And she was telling me this story about a friend of hers. And I think it's very fascinating. So a friend of hers back in the 80s or so, whenever she was working full time, went to a different state for like out-of-state travel and was working, and her and a coworker were on site, and their manager at the time, who was this older male, took them to dinner, and then after dinner took them to like a Chippendales style show.
Huh? What?
Yes, this is my mom was telling me this story about her friend, and I was like, I had so many questions. Their older male manager took them to a basically male lack of clothing dance show, thinking it would be like funny or cute.
Is he gay?
That was my immediate question too. I was like, was he? I don't know. I don't know his reasoning.
Like a pastime of his, like he goes to his buddies or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
That
but
so
can you
weird.
imagine? And she said that they were younger, so they were in their early 20s, like early career, right? How would you ever be like, this is wildly inappropriate? Take me home.
And it's like, literally, and it's at that time where it's like, okay, you're there with 1, your boss, 2, someone significantly older than you, and 3, you're young and you don't really know objectively what is right and wrong, and then you're in that scenario, like, what the heck do you do?
I know.
How awful.
I know. I was like,
that's crazy.
It made me think about like those, episodes we recorded where we talked about, being a woman in the workplace. And I'm like, how did they navigate that? But anyways, that was one of those stories where I was like, that would totally not fly today. Somebody would say something, somebody would get fired, somebody would have some sort of punishment, but wild.
Yikes.
Oh, yikes is right.
Oh.
But that's all I had. Ellen, what about your stand-up? Hopefully it's a little bit, I don't know, more PG than that.
Kind of, I guess, more PG. We've gone from leather to Chippendales. Here we are now.
Let's keep it going.
I know. I saw, so there's a couple of like HR professionals on TikTok that will make fun of like people asking, like executives asking an HR manager questions, and they're like, yeah, you can't do that. So there's like a
Uh-huh.
group of them now that have started a podcast, and it's called like your HR bestie or something like that.
Ooh, okay.
And they were posting clips, and one of them that I saw, they were talking about, you know, the whole concept of like quiet quitting and
Oh yeah.
quiet firing, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
So they were talking about quiet vacationing, and it's somewhat, I guess, of a new concept that I didn't really think
Mm.
of or consider, but essentially it's where you want to take PTO, but you're afraid of it getting like declined, or you're afraid of going on vacation then having to be on your phone the whole time. So you don't actually take request PTO, but you go on vacation and you just work on your laptop in a different location and then have your background blurred. So even if you're a remote employee, like technically you could do that and it would be no problem. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's all this backlash now of people like, if you have your background blurred or if you have a background on, that people are like, oh, where are you? Like, are you not at your desk? Are you somewhere that you shouldn't be to be working? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is ridiculous. I'm sorry. If you can get your work done, I don't care like where you're standing, sitting, walking. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and so it was really interesting, kind of their fodder around the
Yeah,
whole thing.
what did they say?
They were all just like, this is so stupid. Like, who cares where
Okay,
you're
good.
sitting?
Yeah.
And as long as you're
Yeah.
able to get your work done, which is nice too, because they're all, I would say, I don't know exactly how old they are, but I would guess like around 40s and up. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
nice that like, okay, a potential, you know, supervisory role would support you working wherever you would like to work,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, did you get the job done? Yay, nay. If it's nay, then you can start asking questions. If it's yay, like
Yep.
leave it. And as long as it doesn't affect, depending on if you work like asynchronous, then
Right. Like, who cares?
asynchronously. Yeah. I don't think that it matters. But
No, totally.
some
Oh,
people just like to ruffle feathers. That's it.
it's like just to, you just got to say something. You just have to be mad about something. You're just itching to start a fight. It's like that kind of
It's
thing.
jealousy. It's
It's
jealousy.
jealousy. The other thing that I actually just thought of that I forgot to tell you about this, but we had a meeting this like a town hall this past week, and come January, I think they're starting to push people to 3 days a week in office. It's happening.
Wait,
It's
what was
happening.
there? Did they provide reasoning, or it was just like, this is it, and swallow the
Company
pill?
collaboration and cross-functional work streams. That's what it was. We paid too much for these commercial real estate
Offices.
buildings, so therefore we feel guilty about that, and your ass needs to be at the office. Is more or less the
Oh
people abuse
my.
working from home.
Okay, well then that sounds like the performance thing. Like you're just using a blanket statement. Like what data do you have? If data is so important in decision making, what data do you have that productivity is down?
Fabulous question.
Sounds like a you problem.
Sounds like that's not my problem, and I would like to work at home. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I had this
So,
thought every day that I was driving into the office. It was like, how much gas am I wasting?
and
How
time,
how much
especially
time?
now,
Yeah.
like with the consulting piece, like
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
technically I am then, because it's at least 30 minutes for me to get to the office, at
One
least
way.
one
Yeah.
way. And so I'm like, okay, that's an extra hour plus two
Mm-hmm.
times a week, which isn't much, but it adds up.
Well, and then now tack on an additional day. But no, that adds up over the course of a month, a year.
Yeah,
Yeah. That
exactly.
definitely equates to a lot.
Exactly. It's the extra time, and then like on days when I do go into the office, I get up earlier and I start work so much later versus like
Right.
when I'm at home, I can wake up at 7 and log on at 7:05.
Are they dictating which day it is, or do you still have like Wednesday as the anchor day?
I don't know. I guess I'll have to wait and see, but I'm like, this is so
Yeah,
annoying.
I'm sure everybody had the exact same reaction of an eye roll. There's nobody that's on the other end, so like, yay,
I can't
another
wait.
day. Oh my god, shitty coffee and
Okay, their coffee's actually really good, but
okay,
I
take
know
that
what you
back.
mean.
Really?
So that's enough moaning and complaining from us over here, but that's that on that, I guess. Sarah starts her new job today, so send her
Oh
some
yeah.
good, some warm fuzzies and some kudos. Very excited. We're
Mm-hmm.
chomping at the bit to get some updates. So I hope
Yes.
onboarding goes really smoothly this time.
I have an onboarding. Yay.
Woohoo! Check. Step in the right direction.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Good, good. Well, we hope you all enjoyed Bailey's episode. Fun fact, when we launched, if you saw that really cute, just came to say hello, little reel, that was all her. I need
Creative
to,
genius.
creative genius. We need to repost that. That thing is like a work of art, truly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Bailey. I hope everybody enjoys her episode, and we'll talk to you later. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Job. Today, we are joined by Bailey Driver. Her business is called Branded by B, and she is a one woman creative studio specializing in small business branding and wedding stationery. Humbly based out of her second bedroom in her apartment, Bailey serves brides and business owners in the Kansas City area and across the Midwest. She started in the throes of 2020 when, much like everybody else, she had a lot of time on her hands. What started as a little hobby, making her friends and family custom digital illustration and posting about it on Instagram, turned into saying yes to bigger design projects and not cluelessly, expertly designing her friends' wedding stationery. 4 years later, on top of working a full time job in the commercial real estate industry, Bailey has worked with over 50 brides and dozens of small business owners. When she looks back on how she got here, it's really no surprise, as design and art have always played a huge part in her life. She learned discipline at a very young age, being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 4, and the discipline continues to serve her as she balances running her own business outside of her 8 to 5. I love the 8 to 5 instead of 9 to 5 because that's real life.
The
The
reality.
real, yeah.
Yes. However, when you're working with Bailey, she makes design projects fun and easy, two words that are not often used when describing daunting tasks, like reimagining your business's branding or bringing a whole wedding suite to life. Welcome, Bailey, and the mastermind behind all of the branding here at Just a Job.
Hmm. Yay.
It's so fun to see the evolution of all of this. I popped on my Instagram before this and I was like, yeah, I'm getting ready to hop on Just a Job. And I was like, wait, I feel like we just did your guys' branding, but you guys are in it. And I remember like launching and doing all the graphics for it. So it just feels very full circle to be here.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it just makes
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yes, totally.
Yes.
I am also excited because Bailey is a fellow K-Stater. So
Yes.
we got some purple pride in the room here. So it was like no doubt when Ellen and I were coming up with Just a Job, like I think being in the wedding industry, like in my former life, I'd seen so much of your amazing work. And then also to like outside of the wedding, you're more like, business focused branding in the digital space. We were just like easy. And like seriously, that was the like best way to describe the process of working with you. We were like so confused on what we were doing, what was needed, when we were like, help us.
What do I do?
Yeah. So we are so excited to have you here because Bailey, you're juggling in 8 to 5 and running a business. So it's
True.
no small feat. So I'm excited to jump in. Bailey, when you were a kid growing up, what did you want to be?
Okay, I was giggling answering this question. Like when you guys sent the questions you were going to send, I was like typing it out because I remember listening to one of your episodes and someone else who I think was maybe kind of my age demographic said marine biologist. And I was like, okay, I was not the only one. Like, what was in the water? Was that some like propaganda? And in my head, when I said marine biologist, it meant like feeding dolphins and acting like a mermaid. I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid when I was in like my Disney princess era growing up, and we went to Disney World a lot, and I just had an obsession with Ariel. So naturally, I was like, okay, that's how I can merge my affinity for The Little Mermaid and a job as a marine biologist. And it's actually funny because my longtime babysitter from growing up lives in Oregon now and is a legit marine biologist. And
That's cool.
It's really cool. But like, I had no business thinking that I wanted to be that at all. No business.
I think I also blame that because like you said, you're not the first person to say this, but I also think like aquamarine has a huge play in that. you know?
Mm,
Yes, that was a very like a foundational movie in my growing up middle school era.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
one of the
So,
Okay.
best.
did your dreams of becoming a marine biologist eventually evolve? Were you getting to the point of like, oh, I need to go to college and figure out what the heck I want to do? Like, what was the
hmm
next kind of piece of evolution of a career aspiration?
Yes. So, like a little backstory, my parents have their own optometry practice together. And growing up, I'm from Salina, Kansas, which is like 50-ish thousand. It's small, but it's big enough where I we are very ingrained in the community and everyone kind of knows everyone. So I feel like growing up, I had a lot of people ask me, "Oh, like, do you also want to be a doctor? Like, that's what your parents do. Don't you want to do that?" And I never, like, my brain is the most like artistic, could not be further from like eyes and health and like all of the science that goes behind that. So I almost like took it as a badge of honor where I was like, no, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to go create stuff. I want to do marketing. I want to write. And I think I maybe had a little bit of chip on my shoulder about that. So I completely went the other direction and I was like, no, I'm not. I'll help my parents like if they need help on social media or their website, but like I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So I feel like that unknowingly shaped a lot of my next steps. Obviously, in high school, you have no idea what you want to do, but I was really involved in our school newspaper. And that's like when I first learned how to use Adobe InDesign and Illustrator. And then I, like in college, was a first and only year interior design student. And I was like, I feel like I'm running away from wanting to really pursue marketing because I have all these people telling me that it's not an industry you can make money in. So I finally like I realized interior design wasn't for me, and I realized I'm skipping ahead to some of the other questions, but
That's
found
perfect.
found my way back to marketing, and now here I am,
Ooh, marketing at K-State. I always thought
marketing
it was,
JMC.
yeah, yeah, journalism, mass communications, and also too, like some of the classes were in the business school. I don't know.
hmm
We talked recently with one of the interviews, and we were like, did we actually learn anything? Like how much of
No.
how much of this like and maybe that's just like kind of how college is, right? Like you're really, I mean, unless you're in this um I
Like
don't know,
highly
like
specialized.
the super,
Very
yeah, where
tactical.
correct. You're
Yeah,
learning a lot of like ideas and just kind of how to honestly like be a good employee. And then that's
truly.
like really about it. Like I can't really, I don't recall anything on my day to day that I learned in college,
hmm
knowingly at least.
I
But
remember doing a lot of like SWOT
oh my God,
analyses.
so many.
So many. Yeah, but why do I don't know why I have that memory, but lots of SWATs.
Yeah, it's one of those acronyms that stuck with you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like PIMDAS.
As they tend to do. Yeah. When you were in college, did you have any internships that like helped shape what you wanted to do, or any
hmm
sort of experiences that you were like, this is it, or you're like, holy crap, this is not it?
Yeah. So I my first internship in Kansas City was at an engineering consulting firm. And
Mm,
truly,
fun.
as you, Sarah, as you
Oh.
can remember, JMC had a class where you had to have an internship and
Mm-hmm.
that had to be like approved by the school. You had to have your supervisor write off on it. It was an
Oh yeah.
entire thing. You had to give a presentation about your internship to
Sorry, you
freshmen.
mean paying to work? Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
I do remember that. So as you just said, wow, engineering consulting so sexy.
Yeah.
It was humbling, truly so humbling. And it was one of those things where I found it on K-State's. They were really good about posting internship opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of a little late to the game, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll apply to this. And I remember I was on my way to like a doctor's appointment in Wichita, probably diabetes related, honestly, and I literally had like my interview in the car. My dad was driving, and I'm like talking like to this my supervisor about me and just my experience, and she was like, okay, yeah, you're hired. So that should have been like my first red flag probably. But then yeah, that my junior year I lived with my aunt who lives in Kansas City, had that internship, And looking back now, that is probably a very large piece of my story and how I ended up in commercial real estate. So, a new acronym for everyone, if you're unaware, is AEC, and it's architecture, engineering, construction. So, the company I interned for is under that AEC umbrella. And when I interviewed at the job that I have now, they saw that I had that experience. So, that was kind of a shoe in. I had no idea that those two fields, like, engineering consulting and commercial real estate, were related at the time, but they were. So I would say that played a big piece in where I am now, even though my
Yeah.
internship was god awful. Literally, like, had a countdown on my phone, like days left of internship.
That's
One of
hysterical.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. And too, to
Was
like have that first corporate internship where you're just like, your head's in the clouds. You're just like, I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
be the best. You mentioned earlier you're the oldest daughter. Like, I can only imagine what
Yep.
your personality is like on your first day. And
Mm-hmm.
then to show up and be like, this is awful. And to kind of
Yes.
like remove yourself from that. I'm sure you had that like just a job mentality even before, it was
Before
really
I
a
even knew
thing.
what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
was there a point in your internship where you were like thinking about the context switching of being a student and having relative control over your schedule? Like you get to pick when your classes
Mm-hmm.
are and all that fun stuff. Like what was that switch of having control to having quite literally none and having a countdown to when you're going to leave?
Yeah. All I feel like I kind of blacked it out, honestly. It wasn't like
Mm,
traumatic by any means, but I came from an environment in school where I was being fed work and structure, and I knew every day what was expected of me, to this
Mm-hmm.
8 to 5 setting where my supervisor was in her back corner. She always had her door closed. I had no idea what the hell this company even did. My project for the year was to, like, it was like data entry almost, but it was
mm,
for like these project profile templates. So it was built out in InDesign, and someone above me like built out the template, so it wasn't even like I got any creative freedom to even try and poke around and provide alternate design options. It was truly like I was a little lab rat, and they were like, okay, here's what you're going to do. And I did it. And I remember towards the end, I ran through that project so quickly that there was nothing for me to do. So I was
Oh
working
no.
on my portfolio at the time, which is
mm,
so like funny and painful to look back on that work. But I was putting together an online portfolio presence to get a job. So
mm.
that's what I used that time for. And I'm glad that they were okay with me doing that, or else I truly don't know what I would have done. We're just kind of on my own island. It was very
Yeah.
isolating. So,
Mhm.
Mm.
But good for
I
you,
think,
still like making good use of the time, and
yeah.
not
yeah,
just sitting back and coasting. I feel like
yeah.
it's a valuable lesson. And two, like knowing that it propelled you forward to get a job in the future, like it
Mm-hmm,
was only advantageous in the end.
mm-hmm.
So after the internship ended, what was next?
So I went back senior year of college, time of my life. Like, we had a house outside of Aggieville, which is where K-State's bar scene is. I lived with 7 other girls, 2 bathrooms. It was the most, like, there's no way that house would have passed fire code. Like, it felt
Oh,
like, looking
never.
back, so illegal on so many different ways. Our rent was like $300.
Yeah.
My utilities are $300 now. It's just a very
Yeah.
unrealistic life that I miss sometimes. But I finished up my year, and the JMC, like, marketing world, kids were not getting jobs until literally like a week before graduation. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember feeling so scared and kind of put out. I was like, oh my gosh, all my friends in business school and all my teacher friends have their placements already. Like, what am I going to do? Like, if I don't graduate with a job, did I have, is, what does that mean for me? And I remember just
Mhm.
feeling so put out by that. And I wish so badly someone would have like sat me down and been like, Bailey, take a month. Literally, take a month, live your life. You're never going to get this time back. I had other people that I knew at K State that like went abroad for the summer. And I was like, why don't I feel like I could do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job literally the end of April. My boss at the time, who I was like interviewing with, or who would be my boss, was like, I'm going on maternity leave in June. And when you take this job, you're going to be running the marketing department for 3 months at our company. So I started a week after,
What?
yes, this is also a very large part of like my career story. So I started a week after graduation. I actually just celebrated my 5 years at our company on the 28th,
Congrats.
so a couple days ago. Thank you. And it was like drinking out of seven fire hoses. They're like training me on all this stuff because in literally a couple of weeks, my boss was going on maternity leave. And my boss at the time still have amazing relationship with her. She taught me so much. She's at a different company now, but um, she was like, you're gonna have to run this department, so we need to figure some stuff out. So that's how I started my first job. Um, yeah,
I have
it was
so many
That's
wild.
questions and
insane.
Yeah, I know.
reactions. Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
who? Okay, not that I doubt you, Bailey, but like, who would
No,
enlist a 22-year-old to be?
Fresh off the press grad.
I had access to our Instagram, our website, like all of these things that I could have effed up so bad. Like like when you see companies tweet stuff and you're like, wow, who approved that?
Yeah.
That's probably the 22-year-old who was given like the free reins of all of the social media because they're running the show.
Oh my
my
God.
God.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so
insane.
how was your mental state in all of
Yeah,
this?
that was going to be my question.
Uh-huh.
Like,
You're
we're
like doing
I'm
everything.
trying to like put my brain as like I'm trying to put myself into the situation of like what the
Yeah.
heck I would do. Like, were you like, okay, I'm gonna rise to the occasion? Were you like, holy shit, what am I going to do? Or like, actually, I don't want this job anymore. I'm gonna go
Uh-huh.
somewhere else. What was your
Uh-huh.
mindset like?
I think it was a combination of both of those things. And I know every industry, when you're first new in it, is so overwhelming, and people are using acronyms and they expect you to have this just like overall understanding. You guys are nodding your head because I know you
We
both
just
like
started
started
new
new jobs.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like, yes,
Uh-huh.
tear falls from our
Yeah.
eyes.
Yes, the acronyms, so painful. Commercial real estate is so much more investment and like economics heavy because you're dealing with not only like investors with properties who are putting their money into commercial assets, but you're also dealing with legit businesses who have a bottom line. And there's lots of numbers and financials involved in this. And like I said earlier, that is not where I shine. I've obviously figured it out now, and like we're in a good place. But not only was I 22, I had just come from an internship where I was literally doing data entry. I was going through that weird like month after graduation where I was like, oh my God, I've never been away from my friends for more than a day. Like, what do you mean I'm living on my own now and I can, like, no one's telling me what to do? It was just, everyone has been through it, but that was really hard for me too. But I feel like in that moment, I was thinking back on my internship and how I wish so badly that I was given more structure and more opportunities to shine. And I kind of used that experience um, I don't know, to look differently at this job opportunity and be like, okay, yeah, you're 22 years old and the bar is literally on the ground right now, so it's time to like this is it. Put on your big girl panties. Like we're doing this, and I think I've
Mhm.
just kind of had that attitude for the entirety that I've been at this job. It's always kind of like that prove them wrong,
Mm.
and I really thrive off of that. Turns out.
Oldest daughter.
100%.
What's your Enneagram, Bailey?
Oh, I knew that was going to come up. I am a 1, and then I wing like 3 and 8, I think.
Okay.
It's been a while. I feel like I should retake it. But I
Yeah.
am a 1 to my core. Like I know
Like,
that about myself.
Structure, rules.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know it all in like the best sense of the word. Like
Mm-hmm.
confident.
It's,
That's a good one. Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
confident.
I think
Yeah.
you're
Not a
I think
know-it-all.
It's a
Confident.
nicer way to brand it.
Yeah, I think you're the first. I think you're the first one that
Mhm.
we've had on. So welcome. What an honor.
Thank you.
I can only imagine like how much you learned. I love how you said drinking from a fire hose, but like not just one, but like
Like seven.
multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that shaped your experience of like, I'm sure in your 5 years you've had, people work under you. Like
Hmm.
now that you have, some sort of like management role, like how are you kind of like, I don't know, teaching the next generation of employees?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I am very much figuring out my management style right now. And managing people is hard. It is
Mm-hmm.
so hard, but I love it too because I can picture and put myself back in this 22-year-old shoes. And I was so scared to, it's so silly, but to ask questions and be like, I don't know what that means. And I need you to explain this to me, not only what it means, but how it affects XYZ. Like why do I need to know this and how will it be applied to me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was just so scared to admit, like, I don't understand. Can you help?
Yeah.
And I think I just really want to provide, like in my management style, the space to be heard and to have those conversations, and not only being able to manage someone to get like projects done, but to also understand how they best receive feedback, because that's something that I think I struggled with in the beginning too. Is my boss at the time, she was, giving me feedback in her style, but that is not how I best receive feedback. So looking back, I think I would tell myself, you are taking things way too personally. She is literally just giving you the constructive feedback that you need to get this job done. So maybe you need to tell her, instead of explaining it to me this way, tell me that this is wrong, but then also tell me what you're thinking as an alternate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's just a lot of like putting myself back in my first couple of years in my job and what I wish my boss or whoever I was asking a question to like would have said to me. Um, so just being mindful about that, I guess.
Yeah. The management piece is interesting because it's like you think back as when you become a manager and you're managing a team or one person or however many, you look back at your own experience. Like, what did I like? What did I not like? How can
Hmm.
I be the best at managing people going forward, especially based on your
Right.
previous experiences too? Right.
Right.
And I always joke that like whenever I work with someone, I have like a mini profile in my mind of how they like to have feedback, how they like to have
Yes.
questions asked. Because I think also, I don't know about you too, but I feel like I am different at work than I am personally with my friends. Like I'm way more
100%.
direct at work and like get it done to the point. Maybe that's just like a project manager lens, I guess. But like it's really interesting trying to be balance one, your work, two, your team, but then also that like personality and emotional aspect of managing
Hmm.
people. What has management been like for you, and maybe what has something that's gone well or not so well? Like what do you like and not like
Hmm.
about it?
That was a really good segue because I like personally and professionally am really trying to leave my people pleasing.
Mm,
Uh, just I hate conflict. I hate having hard conversations with people. I would rather just like brisk over things and brush things under the rug. And that is how I am with my friendships, with my boyfriend. Like that is just who I am. And I'm trying so hard to have more direct
It's tough,
con-
Bailey. You're doing a great job.
so
you're
hard
mindful
having,
of it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes,
Yeah, that's
so
half of it.
mindful. And I'm trying so hard to be direct, but also, I mean, obviously respectful, like direct and
yeah.
respectful are the same thing. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I remember several times my boss got on me, and at the time I was like, "Oh shit," she was like, that was a hard conversation that we just had. But I respected her so much more for it because I could look back and be like, "Yeah, you half-assed that." Like, yeah, no, obviously she thinks that you can do better, and instead I have a tendency to uh, take projects, because I also have issues with control, and just do them myself and do them the way that I would do it. But I know I need to stop, give thoughtful feedback, because that is how the person, like that's how you learn, is when a boss gives you very specific, like, hey, instead of this, this is what you should have done, instead of me just taking it and doing it myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that is one thing I'm really struggling with right now. Um, and it's especially hard with design, like graphic design too, specifically because you can have all of the brand guidelines and direct, like creative direction in the world, but sometimes it's just easier to like fix things on your own instead of
Oh.
giving someone the
Mm-hmm.
feedback. So I'm trying to just take those opportunities and like sitting down together and being like, hey, let me walk you through what I was thinking and let's fix this together. So just bringing in and having more opportunities for that collaborative space, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention design is such a like constant feedback loop where it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of collaboration, it's a
A
lot of
lot of collab.
communication, and you definitely have to have, I feel like, thick skin. So I can imagine that you have
Mm-hmm.
very thick skin. Bailey, I want
I
to
do.
jump into 2020 comes
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's all, oh shit, what am I doing? This is like an opportunity for, I feel like, everybody to just like explore or tap into something.
Mm-hmm.
And you definitely
Very
did. So
hobby.
talk, yeah,
Mm.
definitely. Yeah, try. I miss those times of just like trying out things and seeing if they
Right.
land. But Branded by B landed. So talk us through the story of like jumping into it, you know, kind of here and there,
Yeah.
and then you're like fully fledged. I love this.
Yes.
I'm gonna pursue it.
Yes. So 2020, I was living in a house in Roland Park, Kansas, a little suburb of Kansas City, with one of my best friends from college. Her, uh, it was his name is Jim, a boy. We lived with a boy. It was like reverse New Girl, honestly, is kind of what it was like. And Jem was Paige's best childhood friend, neighbor growing up, and then another girl that I knew from a mutual friend. And COVID started, and I just remember being at home a lot with those people, and I loved them so much. And I would say this to their faces, but I am an introvert. I have my extroverted moments, but I am an introvert in my core, and I will own that. I used to be embarrassed of it. I'm an introvert, whatever. So I was up in my room and I was like just missing college and missing all of my friends. It was like the first year that we had been away, and we got these really cute graduation pictures done outside of Anderson Hall, like everyone at K State does. And I just started like messing on my iPad with my pencil, my stylus, and just kind of like tracing over the picture. And I created this like abstract illustration. I feel like in 2020 they were really popular, and I shared
Mm-hmm.
them with everyone, and I got them framed and like sent them to all of my friends. And I was like, just miss you guys. Like, this is one of my favorite pictures. You know, here it is as a gift. And looking back, I know this about myself now, but I love giving people gifts because I love the intentionality behind it. And I love being able to like serve people in that way. So it was kind of this like natural bridge. And I started posting about it, and random people are asking me to do like Mother's Day gifts or Christmas gifts. And it was a lot of like family portraits. Um, and then I think I started doing more branding work, and it was just because people, I don't know, I was posting about it on Instagram and people were reaching out, and I was just saying yes. I was saying yes to everything, things I had absolutely no business saying yes to, and just posting about it and sharing about it. And then one of my best friends from college, Christy, was the first of our friends to get married. And I was like, hey, can I, or maybe she asked me, but I designed her save the dates. And looking back, love you, Christy, but damn, that was like, I would have done things, a lot differently. So thank you for giving me the creative reins there. But I did her save the dates, and her husband, now Brandon, decided that they were going to do the invites, which probably thank God. So I I just started sharing, and people, like the people in my corner, are beyond supportive and are my biggest cheerleaders, and they started sharing. So I feel like the next couple of years it was all like, oh hey, so and so told me that you do wedding stationery or you do branding, like could we chat, I have this project. So it just, word of mouth has been really powerful. So just kind of kept moving me along. And I started getting more confident. I started investing in some more like design stuff and actually making processes that made sense for me. I knew that I wanted this to be like, this will be a side thing. Like I never was meant to, it never is going to replace like what I'm doing at my real job, but it was just a creative outlet. And now I'm at the point where complete strangers are finding me on Instagram. And I, this year especially, have gotten really plugged into the Kansas City wedding community. And I've started making connections there. And that has been so powerful to me. But I think like looking back at the core of every opportunity that this year and last year especially have given me, like those have been really transformative years for me and Branded by B, is I have always said yes. I have always went and got coffee with someone if they reached out. I put myself out there, and as an introvert sometimes it's a little daunting to do that, but saying yes to all of those things has given me more confidence to say no now, because I know, hey, this is what I'm really good at, and I'm going to charge you X, Y, and Z because I know I'm good at this. But if you're asking me to do web design or something, I can get you started, but I'm not the right person.
Mhm.
So this, I feel like that was very long-winded, but that's kind of where I'm at and how it started. I never would have guessed in 2020 that I would, like this year, I'm like one wedding away from the weddings that I did in 2023, and it's only May, about to be June. So
Wow.
That's crazy.
yeah, and
Um,
I'm really proud of that.
yeah, I was
As
gonna
you
say
should be.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Like
thank
that's
Yeah.
you.
so awesome. And I love hearing like the little milestones along the way of like the very first piece that you did, the graduation art for your friends,
Hmm.
and then the first save the date. And now you're having, like you said, strangers reach out to you. Like
Hmm.
once the business expanded upon people that you knew, and like you said, like strangers were reaching out, like
Hmm.
was that like a, oh, I'm onto something kind of feeling? Like, did you have that previously? What was that like?
It was honestly really just builds my confidence,
Mm,
especially in the design world. People are posting their best work, the things that they are most proud of. And it is so easy to compare yourself and be like, oh my, like, wow, like look how many followers they have. And wow, that suite must have been so expensive. They're working with really high end customers. It's so easy to get imposter syndrome. So I feel like when I get people that reach out to me, that I have no idea who they are, well, I now have a form on my website that says, how do you hear about me? And a lot of them are from Instagram, where I'm like, okay, like stay in your lane. You are providing a service that is different than everyone else. Like they're inquiring because they want you to help them. Like you have
hmm
something that is different from everyone else. And just like really grounding myself in that on days where I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. What am I doing? Like, are they even gonna like this? So it's just a lot of like being intentional with my own thoughts,
mm,
and just that reminder of you, like I have
Definitely.
a service that, I mean, yeah, other people can design stationery, but I have a service that they're coming to me for.
people are
Hmm.
seeking you out.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
Hmm
just being
Yeah.
being mindful of that.
I feel
hmm
like kind of back to that like constant feedback loop. Like I admire business owners so much because you're putting yourself out there. Like regardless of what your business is, but especially for like design because it is
Hmm.
such a handcrafted experience. Like you're especially weddings, like it's such a monumental time in people's lives. And basically, like
Hmm.
when you deliver something, you're just like, okay, here's a piece of my heart and my head. Like, don't be mean.
Yes.
And,
Oh my gosh, yes.
so I feel like absolutely like, it's natural to have those thoughts. But I think that, Ellen and I are like obviously so impressed because we've worked with you, but I'm sure it's reassuring to also like hear from people and have the experiences of like, oh my God, you're the best. And it's just like, okay,
Hmm.
this is why I'm doing it. I want to talk
Yes.
about getting yourself invested into the wedding community because I feel like
Hmm.
you're just like crushing it. Like I feel like you're doing so many styled shoots, you're getting so involved. And
Yeah.
I mean this question goes for anyone that's like balancing and juggling a lot of things, but how the hell are you doing it? And like
Hmm.
how are you continuing to keep the same like excitement and energy towards it as you start to, like invest some more time, I'm sure, on like the
Mm-hmm.
weekends and outside of working hours? Like how is this in the last 6 months kind of changed how you show up with your business?
I don't know how I do it. I think it all comes back to discipline. And I mentioned this in my
Mm.
bio, and I hate like wearing this victim badge because my whole life, like since I was 4, I've had diabetes. And from a really young age, that taught me an insane amount of discipline. And I think that discipline has carried on through the rest of my life. So I'm a very like schedule oriented person. I know I'm getting to work at this time. I'm going to work out after work. I do that every day. I'm going to make dinner. We go on our after dinner walk, and then I work. And I think just like having a really honest conversation with clients too when I onboard them, like, hey, I work a full-time job and do this on the side. So just know that like you can text me or email me throughout the day and I'll try and get to you. But a lot of the work that I do is at night. And just having that conversation and saying, hey, in my head, I'm going to get this to you by this date. But if for whatever reason it gets pushed out, I'm going to let you know. And just kind of building in those own buffers for myself and having the honest conversation, people are way more receptive and they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for your time. Like, I know you have a lot going on. So I've learned just having the open communication style with people has served me really well.
Mhm.
Mm.
You're setting the expectation with them, but you're also putting in a boundary for yourself as well,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
I think like with anything is important, but also balancing two almost pretty much full-time jobs, I
Mhm.
think is like
Mhm.
essential for you and your sanity. So kudos
Yes.
to you for sticking to that and making sure it's like a part of your process always.
Mhm.
I'm curious about like the two different paths between like business branding and weddings. Like to
Mhm.
me, those are very, very different things. But
They
like
are.
what okay. I was like, I
They
don't
are
know any
different.
better. So take that with a
Oh, they
grain of
are.
salt. But talk to me about like the differences in the types of projects and what you like and don't like
Mhm.
and kind of
Mhm.
how also okay no do that question first and then I have another one before I add
Okay.
7 more questions on top
Okay.
of
Okay.
that.
Perfect. I'm like, yeah, you guys are asking me such like amazing questions. I'm like, oh, I can answer about that first part, but the second, I don't know. But so this has been an internal struggle of mine this year, especially. So it's funny that you asked this because I love I love both because they're so relational and they're so personal for two different reasons. With wedding stationery, there's I'm obviously someone that thinks wedding stationery is amazing. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's just paper. It gets thrown in the trash. Like, why do you want to spend so much money or thought um, into this piece of paper? I think invites are so cool. The fact that we have someone that can literally deliver a piece of paper from Kansas City to San Diego is insane to me. Like I know USPS like is having going through it right now and having their moment, but it's so cool to me. I'm like, I can design this and send it to Ellen in San Diego. Like, what do you mean? So I think just the intentionality behind invites are so cool, and it is the first peak of anyone's experience, if you will, user experience with your
Mhm.
wedding. Like it gives people a really good idea of like what they can expect from the wedding. And I think it's so cool that you can make it so personal um, to a couple and you can tell their story through paper. I love it, and I can nerd out on it and talk about it for hours. So I love invites in that world for that reason, but I also love branding because it's almost kind of the same story. You're giving a business the foundation that they will interact with all of their customers, their clients. I mean, to me, branding and like your business plan is everything when you're having a business. And I just love playing a part in that and being the unbiased eye that comes in and provides some expertise or some guidance because a lot of the times, I mean, as you guys can attest, you can get so overwhelmed with all of the options and all of the different directions and what's trendy and what's not. So I love being like a consultant kind of in that
Mhm.
role and helping people through that process. But Where I've been struggling this year is, yeah, small business branding and wedding stationery are so different. And I'm like, do I want to, when people look at my feed, all they see is wedding stationery, or do I want to infuse the two? And right now, I've come to terms with infusing the two because, like, branding is also infused in wedding stationery, if you will. Like, you almost have a mini brand for your wedding. So I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a world in the space where they can live together. And I'm starting to get some inquiries, like from Kansas City wedding vendor people that are like, hey, I've seen your work on your wedding invites and you also post about branding. Like, I want to chat to you about, doing a rebrand myself. So I just have to remind myself that offering the two and making them very visible on my Instagram is opening up doors for me. So it's not something that I should shy away from for now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're finding your niche almost.
Yeah. And just being confident in my niche, because there's other people that I follow on Instagram that have way bigger businesses and followings than I do. And they offer branding, but they never post about it. And all they do is post about their wedding stationery. And I know there's pros and cons and there's strategies to both, but branding is a big part of my story too. So I'm gonna put that on the forefront of my feed for
Oh
now.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say also too, like, I remember in the wedding industry, it's like, if you, I don't know, now we're getting into like business strategy, but it's like, hey, you have all these clients that you've worked with on branding side of things. Everybody knows somebody. If you can get like a client referral and,
Mhm.
not pigeonhole yourself necessarily into weddings, it could open you up to other business opportunities. But obviously
Right.
things that you've probably thought through yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing both of your stories, I am really curious about any sort of like interesting workplace stories. You kind of clued
Yes.
us into it a little
Yeah,
bit
I
before
did.
we jumped in, but I'm like we're 40 something minutes in and I'm
I
like, all
know.
right, tell us
I
now,
have to tell the
Bailey.
story. Yeah. So I'll just say, like, just started off, a lot of my life, for anyone that's familiar with Kansas City, revolves around the plaza. I work on the plaza. I live north of the plaza. My gym is west of the plaza. Like, a lot of my life, including my boyfriend and how we met, is on the plaza. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been at my company for 5 years now. So this was in 2021. We had a new commercial real estate broker start. And when he started, I was like, oh, he's cute. But I knew at the time that he was living with another girl and they had been dating for 5 years. And so it literally never crossed my brain. And he's also 2 years older than me. So never crossed my brain that this would ever be a thing. And I was like, even if it was, you work together and your company is really small. So, like, let's not even go there. So we went there and, and now we're dating and we live together. I kind of noticed that, like, things were getting a little more friendly and we would teams each other. And how our company is set up, I do the marketing for our company and all of our brokers are 100% commission based. So there's like a natural divide between the expectations of the brokers and the staff. So staff is comprised of marketing, accounting, some leadership, operations, and property management. So at the time, I was still a marketing coordinator. My boss was still there. Chase was getting more friendly, and we're just like developing a friendship. And at the time, I was like, he has a girlfriend. Okay, we're not going there. So one night is in the summer at the levee. If you're in Kansas City, you know, you know. And I saw him out, and I was like, okay, it's so weird seeing people that you work with like
Yeah.
out at a bar
Yeah.
late at night. And we started talking, and it was one of those things where, like, friends were around for a while, and we talked for like an hour, and everyone had left us, and I was like, okay, that was kind of weird that we just talked for that long, and you were with all of your guy friends, like, whatever. So I went to work the next week, and it was our annual review time. And at the end of my annual review, I was talking with my boss and I was like, oh my God, I forgot to tell you, I saw Chase out at the levee. And she was like, oh, you know, he's single now, right? And I was like, oh, wait, what do you mean he's single? And one thing just kind of led to another. And then by that fall, we were dating and we kept it a secret for 3 months. Again, our company is very small. There's literally 25 of us. And I thought it would be a conflict of interest, because hypothetically I could put his work above anyone else's, or I could do the opposite if I was mad at him and like put his work at the bottom of my to-do list. Another piece of the story was that at the time I had another job offer to leave, and it was not because of him. It was truly, there's other things going on and I was going to leave. I had a job opportunity lined up, and my boss got back from her second maternity leave. So I saw her through two of those, and she was like, hey, let's go grab coffee. And I was like, we never go grab coffee. Okay. And she sat me down and she was like, I'm leaving. And we want to promote you to be the marketing manager. And I was like, that's funny because I was going to leave too. So I stayed, obviously, and we went in a couple days later, told our managing partner that we were dating, and it was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to get fired. Like there's no way this is going to be okay. And they literally were like, oh, congrats. Like, that's so awesome. Just be professional and no one really cares. So I think that was another like funny realization that in the real world, I know there's companies that like contractually like you don't do that, but it just like no one cares. If you're professional, if you get your work done, like just be an adult about it. So anyways, we've been dating for 2.5 years now. And that's like one of my favorite stories to tell, but
office love.
Quite the evolution. Yeah.
A modern
so we
day
live together,
workplace
work
romance.
together.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. For a while, his office was, I'm not kidding you, 10 feet away from mine, and I had a standing desk. So when I was standing up in my cube and I would like look between my monitors, it was his face. So
was that nice, or were you like, get away from me?
That just it was very much the latter. But now I'm like I moved my desk and I'm in my own office, and things are a lot better. It's funky when you get home from work and you don't have to ask them how their day was because you heard every conversation they had. You knew every meeting they had. Like I was a fly on the wall without being one.
That is so funny.
Thank you for sharing that story. So yes.
That was kudos. Very long-winded, but
kudos to you.
And I grew up too with my parents worked together. So I think in my head, I was like, oh, this is normal. And then I tell people that story and they're like, you spend so much time together. And I'm like, we do. We sure do spend a lot of time together.
And it's a testament now. You're like, if we can do this, we can literally do anything. So it just builds confidence in the relationship, you know? Okay, Bailey, I want to know how you define success for yourself.
Yes, that is such a good question. I think I have two different answers to this. One that's more project based, like success of a project, and one that is more personal based. So I'll start with the personal one first. I have been in seasons of life and obviously in job settings where Sunday comes along and having the worst Sunday scaries. I'm like, how am I supposed to make it through this week? I hate the projects I'm working on. The people at work are driving me insane. So I think success to me in that sense is like fulfillment in waking up every morning, knowing that the things that I get to work on and the people that I get to work on those projects with like brings me joy. And even if it doesn't in that season, knowing that like the best is yet to come, and just having that mentality, like one foot in front of the other. So there's that. But I guess like on a project based, I think just at the end of the project, I'm a huge words of affirmation person. So I think just hearing at the end that people are happy, and it's what, when they thought about like their wedding stationery or their branding or whatever, what I created fulfills that dream that they had, if you will. I think it's also important that like I have fun along the way too, and working with people that I would, in a sense, like want to grab coffee with or want to hang out with. I don't always get those kind of clients, and that's okay because that's not how it's supposed to be. But I think that just goes back to my business and attracting the type of clients that I want to work with. That's a whole other thing we could talk about, but that would be my answer.
Multi-layered. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lots of layers.
Let's head into rapid fire. Bailey, what's one thing that you have to make it through the work day?
I am a big drink girly. I get made fun of so many
Yeah.
times when I walk. Yes, got my LaCroix. Later, I'll have a coffee and like a nice latte.
Mhm.
But I always have my water. I have like a smoothie usually in the morning. I have the fridge at work. I have my own personal stash of Poppy and LaCroix. I'm just a big drink girl.
All the
Oh,
beverages.
Yeah,
I like all of the drinks that you just mentioned. Huge fan over
Agreed.
here. What is like a big corporate pet peeve or like a corporate ick?
I think when you are in a big group meeting and you're having kind of like this sidebar conversation with someone and you're like, hey, let's take that offline or let's talk about this after. And then you continue to have the conversation. I'm like, we just said we were going to talk about this later. Why are like, why are we still talking about this?
Shh.
Yes,
Also,
we're moving on.
let's take this offline. You're like,
Yeah.
shudder.
Just
Corporate
offline. Yeah.
shudder.
Also offline.
That's so true and so
Yeah.
painful.
Yes.
What's your favorite way to unwind after work? You kind of gave us a brief rundown, but
Yeah, I love cooking. I like cooking extravagant dinners for myself and less extravagant dinners for Chase, but we like cooking together. And then going for a walk. Obviously, my after work hours look a lot like sitting behind a computer. So any type of like outside time is really nice.
All right, last
Yeah.
one. Do you prefer in person or remote?
I have a hot take. I prefer to be in person more than I prefer. Like we have a hybrid schedule and we work from home once a week, and I think that is the perfect, at least for what I do in my line of work. I think that's the perfect mix.
I cannot relate to that, but I'm happy it works for you.
Why I said I have a hot take. I know.
I can
I'm just
appreciate the
having,
difference though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
working with
Bailey,
like
thank you.
salesmen.
Oh,
It's better to be in person. Sorry.
sure.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Bailey, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Again, like she is the Just a Job brand come to life. Like she helped us put this all together. So we had so much fun working with you. It's like you said, a fun full circle moment that now you're here on the
Hmm.
podcast with us. We loved hearing about your career journey. And thank you so much.
Yes, this was so fun. I feel like it was almost like a little therapeutic. But I didn't know that I needed to talk about those things, but thank you for listening.
We've heard that a few times. Yeah,
Yeah.
glad we could provide this space, and thanks for sharing with us.
Yes,
Yes,
that
you guys
gives
are the
me warm
best.
fuzzies. So that makes me feel
Hmm.
good. Thank you.
Yes.
Make sure you're following us, Just a Job, on all the places you can find us on social media. We'll be sure to include all the places that you can find Bailey and Branded by B as well. Everyone have a fabulous rest of your Monday. And remember, at the end of the day, it's just a job. Bye.